Hello and welcome to Channel 2S. I'm your host, Second Soundwave. The high-grade Gundam The Origin line is probably the best 1/144 scale model line that Bandai has ever given us. They've got more detail than many master grades, and they're not nearly as structurally unstable as the real grade model kits. However, there is one notable issue with the line. Because, let's face it, they're all pretty much the same model. Across the line, pretty much all of the Zeon kits share the same articulation, the same weapons, the same gimmicks. And the Bugu is retail model number 9 to use this body design. So does the Bugu do anything to help itself stand out from the competition? Well, for starters, it is a very unique looking mobile suit. Now this can go either way, as many people, including originally myself, are not a fan of this design, and I can certainly see why. It is very different from the traditional Zeon mobile suits. While it does carry a lot of the same elements, such as the extra hoses, the mono-eye, and the generally rudimentary look of the design, it is a bit more rudimentary than many other Zeon kits, which can lead some people to not be a very big fan of it. However, the fact that this isn't just another Zaku means there is actually a lot of new tooling all over this kit. Almost every single piece of armor that's sculpted in blue or gray is a brand new piece made just for this model. However, the Bugu is still a bit of a kit bash. All of the joint and hand sections as well as the heat hawks are pulled directly from Char Zaku 2, and his primary weapon comes from the Gundam local type of all places. However, you can only fault the Bugu so much for reusing weaponry when the weaponry looks this good. While no sticker is provided for the scope on the rifle, it is incredibly detailed and features both a moving side handle and an extending stock. The hand included to hold the rifle, however, is a bit strange since the ball stem is mounted on an angle as was originally designed to accommodate the larger stock of Char Zaku 1's large anti-ship rifle. The included splayed open hand for the left arm was also taken from Char Zaku 2 and was also intended to assist in holding the large anti-ship rifle, however it works just as well here. And if you swap the open hand out for a standard gripping hand, he can double hand his rifle just like any proper Zeon mobile suit. These gripping hands can also be used to hold the included heat hawk, and unfortunately, as with almost every heat hawk Bandai's ever produced, he doesn't hold it that well. However, if you don't want to be holding this admittedly underwhelming weapon, you also get a second heat hawk that is in its deactivated form with a peg on the side, and there are 2 different points you can peg it on his back skirt, and 1 on each side skirt. Me personally, I prefer putting on the higher of the 2 points on the back. Throughout Gundam's history, Rambo Rao has been one of the few Zeon pilots to have the common sense to carry a shield on his mobile suit, and that decision is reflected here on the Bugu as well. The shield attaches by a 2-point connection. There's a clip that wraps around the back of the arm and tabs in quite securely, and if that's not enough for your taste, you also have a handle that he can hold in his hand and provide a little extra grip. If you choose to have him not hold onto the shield with his hand, you do have a few more options. There's a ball joint attaching the shield to the arm, so you get a bit of side-to-side mobility and rotation, and there's also a sliding joint that allows the shield to move up and down on the arm, giving you some more posing options. On the subject of posability, the Bugu is surprisingly limited in some ways. The shoulder, despite having many different joints that should allow it to come up very high, can really only come out to about here. The swing-up polycap located within the torso is also rather weak, meaning that if you try to use that joint alone to raise the arm, it is most likely going to drop right back down. However, rotation at the shoulder and the bicep are both completely unrestricted, and the elbow has a very respectable near 180-degree bend. The wrists are the exact same ball joints you've seen on every single high-grade Gundam model ever produced, and that unique joint system that was used on the Char Zaku 2 to allow the shoulders to slouch inwards has actually been modified for the Bugu, so now the shoulders tip outwards just a little bit. It's worth noting that I have yet to find a pose in which I found these joints to be particularly helpful. You should also be mindful of the hoses wrapping around the shoulders as you're moving the arms in the kit, since if you're not careful, the shoulder pads can knock them loose. The backpack thrusters have a surprising amount of up and down movement, much more so than you would expect for their kind. The waist has an impressive backwards bend, however the forward bend is not quite as impressive. Side-to-side movement is surprisingly restricted by the hoses very little, although when it comes to rotating the waist, they will provide some interference. The front skirts come pre-separated, which makes the build that much easier, and unfortunately the side skirts barely move out at all. However, there is a pretty handy gimmick built into them that allows you to slide them backwards and over the back skirt to give you just a little bit more space to work with. And as to be expected with a high grade, the back skirt itself is completely static. Like on the Zaku 2, there is a master grade style variable hip joint inside the waist that allows the legs to be swung forward in tandem. Moving the hips forward allows the leg to come up just a little higher than it normally would. Unfortunately, the side skirts are going to make outward movement problematic no matter where the hips are. However, the kid's thigh swivel is completely unrestricted and it has a pretty respectable knee bend. The ankles can bend from here to here, and there's a very subtle mechanism in the foot that allows the toe to automatically drop down when you bend the foot forwards enough. Which is great because it gives you an extra level of subtlety that you can apply to whatever pose you want to put the Bugu in. As is to be expected from a kit with no moving ankle guards, the side-to-side rotation is pretty limited. He's got some pretty sweet detailing on the underside of his feet though. Coming back to the head, it's able to tip up this far, and thanks to a double jointed mechanism in his neck, he's able to look down quite far. However, there's a reason I've saved the head articulation until last, because there is one subtle little feature they included, one tiny little, seemingly insignificant thing that makes this kit stand out from its Gundam the Origin brethren. And that is the mono eye. It's really nothing special for a high-grade Xeon kit to have a moving mono eye. However, on most high-grade kits, the mono eye is moved either by a switch underneath the chin or underneath the helmet. The Bugu takes this feature a step further and in a direction I never thought I would see a high-grade go. As you rotate the head side to side, the mono eye rotates with it. This is a feature that up until now had only been seen on master grade model kits. This feature is very simply accomplished by a pair of toothed gears attached to the head and the neck that allow them to rotate with each other once the head is fully assembled. It's a counterintuitively simple mechanism, but it adds so much to the model and makes this feel like more than just a high grade. And while we're talking about the head, I will quickly mention this extra skull cap piece you get, that it does not include a hole for the commander fin, mainly for those customizers out there that want to make a Bugu of lower rank. And while we're on the subject of extras I ended up not using, I'm going to talk very briefly about the marking sheet for this kit. As with every other Origin kit, you do get a sheet of little clear peel and stick markings like those you get on a real grade. However, it does not feature any of the pinstriping you see on some of the other kits. However, what you do get is two options for the mono eye. You have the traditional metallic pink circle, and then a second sticker is included which has an interesting faded glow effect to it. But oddly enough, I found that the glowing sticker was too large to fit on the rotating eye section, so I used the smaller sticker instead. And while we're still loosely on the subject of customization, I will strongly recommend that you panel line this kit to make it look its absolute best, as it is covered head to toe in some of the best detailing I've ever seen on a high grade. Finally, the Bugu includes a detachable action-based connector, very similar to the kinds you might expect to see on a master grade. And that, my friends, is the high grade Bugu, a model that takes one of the best basic body designs ever developed at the 1/144th scale, gives it a new set of armor, and includes a master grade level function that once again pushes the limits of what the high grade line is capable of. Yes, the additional hoses and armor panels added to the model do hinder its articulation, but the addition of that superbly executed mono eye gimmick is enough to make the Bugu stand out from the crowd. And as with Char's Zaku 2, this is a high grade model kit that I highly recommend to any and all Gunpla builders. But now our time has come to an end. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and consider sharing it with a friend. If you're new to Channel 2S and enjoyed this video and also want to see up-to-date Gunpla news and reviews, consider clicking the icon you see on the screen right now to subscribe, and possibly checking out some of my other content by clicking the thumbnails to the left and the right of the screen. And as always, I'm Second Soundwave, and I'll see you next time.